Hello, everybody, and welcome to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a 1974 slasher classic. Both this and Nightmare on Elm Street were kind of like the big slasher franchises at the time, so we're doing this one today. Because if I remember correctly, this one came out before, actually, so...
Yes, if anything, it's more close to Halloween, arguably, in terms of release date.
So,
So
okay.
there is that.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is probably one of the less talked about of these old slasher franchises, so we're gonna give it the light of the day today. So yeah, that's basically it. It's actually been a few years since I saw this, so it should be fun.
There's a black screen. Start on that, which is right before a Vortex Henkel Hooper production.
Okay then, 3, 2, 1, click.
Yeah, we also brought Jay for this one because why not?
Oh man, I hate family gatherings.
Well, it's very appropriate. For the record, this movie, similar to Blair Witch Project, tries to parody itself as based on a true story, but it's really not. It was done more as a shock value. The director explicitly mentioned that he did it. He still, yes, he still actually, used people, appropriate for the age of. He wanted to do some social commentary of the time that this was made, of about, important pieces of media like government, newspaper and stuff that was literally gaslighting population. So he wanted to create something like that. And by the way, this narrator that we're hearing right now, I forgot the name of the actor, is gonna be basically the most recurring character because during almost all of the movies where narration spoken is included, he's gonna be the one doing it, even for the more recent one. That's pretty cool.
Believe it or not, I've actually not seen the Blair Witch Project. The one I have that's a account of based on a true story, quote unquote, was the Amityville Horror, which I hadn't seen since 2005.
I still have a soft spot for the Blair Witch Project, but it's more, the thing that it spawned, the found footage genre, it's more contestable. Come on, Dweebs.
So Tobe Hooper, he directed, co-wrote, produced, and co-scored the movie.
Yeah, this was basically a passion project, and they even struggled to find, a distributor. The budget was between $80,000 and $140,000, which even for back then they were really pocket money. And like I said, the '70s were not really a great decade for cinemas, which also include very poor budgets for the productions and arranging with what you had. But it was actually, despite also being threatened to receive an X rating, it still managed to gross out $30.9 million. So yeah, it's basically like the equivalent of a modern-day Blumhouse production. Very low budget, absurdly high reward, which meant it's spawned into a franchise with different continuities, believe it or not. I'm personally
hello, neighbor.
I'm personally not the super fan of these. I don't actually hate this franchise, but compared to the classics like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Hellraiser, this one feels a bit more lacking to me, and it basically starts a different kind of horror genre, specifically the hillbilly genre, essentially the horrors of the southern states, of people going crazy, being inbred, and generally mutilating people. It has its fans and everything, but it's just not for me. That being said, it's also been actually a while since I actually watched any of these movies. I didn't even bother with the Netflix one recent one because I've been told it's very, very bad.
So is this one of those films that's framed like a documentary or something?
Quasi, because the first the narration at the beginning claimed it was based on a true story, even if we know it's not really true. And again, considering the budget is small, I can understand also the more, simple title. Which also reminds me, this movie and this franchise as a whole, it has a couple of different titles depending on the country that you have. I forgot exactly which specific one for some other countries. For example, in Japan, I think it's like called Devil's Mask, or in Peru, I think it's called like the Blood Massacre in Texas, I think. But they roughly get similarly across that, sure. In my country, this fucking thing is called in a term that it can be translated as "Don't open that door," which really
sound advice.
Which really doesn't say anything. And sure, something like slightly happens in the movie, but it's really not indicative.
No, that would be like calling. That would be like calling Child's Play Doll That Is Alive. Like,
well, close. It was called the Murder Doll.
No, I get that. That's not the actual title you guys over there for that. It's just that I'm making a hypothetical example.
Well, to be fair, you were actually right on the nail, Pedro. That's what I mean. Sometimes my country decides instead. Oh, poor Armadillo. Sometimes my country, instead of deciding to actually translate the titles, they decide to do whatever the fuck they want. And by the way, since this is the 70s, there's a very good chance that Armadillo is an actual corpse.
All right. Speaking of the 70s, I love how this film came out in the United Kingdom like over 2 years after the US release.
Remember, Dweebs, there was unfortunately, the giving it a rating.
Literally had to. Like, go on.
So I get the idea. Securing it for your country might have been a bit tricky. Go on.
Portugal, or Lisbon specifically, or Porto specifically. I don't know why it says that specifically. Porto had to wait till like February 1979. So Portugal nearly had to wait till the 80s started. And as for what the film was also known as, I wonder if it got a name change here.
No, in the UK, no, I don't think so.
No, it's still a Chainsaw Massacre.
By the way, product of his time, referring to anybody as an invalid is in the 70s.
Questionable. Oh.
Jesus. And this is why wheelchairs tend to have actually brakes these days. Speaking of which, Paul A. Partain plays the wheelchair guy, Franklin Hardesty.
Portugal, the film's called Massacre No Texas. That sounds like the
Massacre no Texas, which literally translates out to Massacre in Texas.
Again, still close enough.
See, the thing is, Chainsaw translated in Portuguese sounds completely different to it, so trying to do a literal translation of this title in Portuguese makes it sound it doesn't roll off the tongue as well, basically.
If I had to hazard also potentially a guess for my country, maybe one reason why they didn't really translated the term chainsaw. Go on, Jay. Sorry.
Sorry, no. Saturn is in retrograde. I'm just sitting here listening to the horoscope girl going wild.
Back into the 70s, Jay, where the 60s were still trying to stay alive, but they were actually dying mercilessly.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is the early 70s are like the 60s, but in color.
Also, Jay, you're really the only American, so you're basically our only field of reference for the authenticity of the climate of these people.
We didn't get we didn't get color TV in that till like the late 60s.
But anyway, again, one reason that I think it might be possible that my country did not translate the original title, if I had to guess, even if I think it's a stupid reason, is that the term of chainsaw, which can be translated literally, includes the term saw, which, as I mentioned during our saw commentaries, can also be used as a slang for masturbation. So I get the idea it might have given people a bit the wrong idea and think it was an erotic comedy.
Texas masturbation.
Some autoerotic asphyxiation.
Well, that would be like the porn. That would be like the porn parody.
I suppose.
Who masturbates to chainsaws?
Don't kink shame.
So is the state setting? I mean, it's obviously supposed to be Texas.
Specifically.
But have they noted what city this is in? Because this feels like Houston.
Near New Puerto County.
Okay.
Just for reference, the director, like I said, picked a bunch of people, in terms of actors who did not have much of an experience, so a lot of these are literally in the first role for the sake of giving that kind of authenticity vibe.
You'd be surprised, Webbs. We don't choose what our fetishes are, so...
Again, Jay, it's kind of similar to what happened with Blair Witch Project. The directors of that one actually picked up a bunch of people who did not really have had a lot of acting experience, and instead give a vibe of authenticity for the experience that they want to have.
Maybe it's Chainsaw Man's fetish.
Sure, let's go with that.
I saw the first episode while I was at a convention. They had a screening on various animes, and they had the first episode of the dub for Chainsaw Man. So I had a look. It's okay. It's our first episode.
Mm-hmm. Frankly, unfortunately, is a bit annoying, as a co-protagonist. We're trying to essentially balance out the fact that, him being disabled, on the wheelchair, he feels very frustrated, even if we're essentially having a fun trip across the country. Oh, and by the way, in order to actually, again, being authentic, they really filmed in this location during, like, if I recall correctly, during the summer, days, which means all the sweat, asphyxiating air and everything of his character that are feeling is genuine. Keep that in mind for the end of the movie.
Yeah, no, southern heat down here, especially in Texas, Arizona, and a few other states, can get brutal. So, yeah, the heat and the sweat to go with it is
So what happens? Do some of the characters survive the massacre, but then they die of dehydration?
Interesting. Anyway, here's our trivia. This hitchhiker here is played by Edwin Neal. I think this was actually around one of his first role too. Actually, yeah, I think it was his very first, which later came out, aside from continuing being, an actor, he also became a voice actor. Particularly for a couple of video games, like Metroid, it was in Metroid Prime 3, believe it or not, and the Second Wing Commander, but also a lot of anime, including a certain one you might have not heard of it. He was the voice of a certain Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA. So, interesting origins, I guess.
And he also played the hitchhiker in the 2023 video game.
Yeah, the year we're recording this, actually, a themed video game came out and he reprised the role, so it's pretty cool, actually.
No, don't actually look at the head cheese. Yeah, good.
In this kind of climate.
Sure.
For some reason, he reminds me of James Franco. Yeah.
Also, by the way, one thing that this movie is actually commonly referred of is apparently good vegetarian propaganda, because the way the processing of meat is described, combined with the things that happen to human characters, apparently are good enough to convince a lot of people to never swear to eat meat again.
Yeah, she looks a bit kind of like a young Christian Bale to me.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, it does resemble him a bit. Let me check instead what the director did after this. All right, he was the director of Poltergeist.
Just snatch a knife from him.
Yep, it's a knife.
I love knives.
He also directed a couple of other films of this franchise and was the executive producer of a couple of other more.
Oh, and now you're just a masochist.
He's the killer.
Well, yeah, he worked at the slaughterhouse as an actual cow butcher.
Very funny, I suppose.
This is the part where you stop the car and throw him out.
I heard the reaction of that guy is not even too panicked. He's just, put away that dude. Is he stoned? Because I can't believe that.
It is the 70s. Kind of person I guess he likes making
They
feel.
are in a, I don't think it's a Volkswagen, van, but it might as well be. It's like the mystery machine. It's actually a Razor.
That's a Razor.
I'm okay, thank you. I do not wish to do that.
Say, Dweebs, this is actually good convincing for your actual eternal crusade against, beard cuts.
Wait, this is one of the family men, isn't it?
I'm not a fan of beards. I want to cut them. I want to cut theirs off.
Oh, so it's not just a matter of a beard being weird. You just don't like beards, period.
Yeah, but people can have them if they want. I'm not cutting them off. Is their option?
Yeah, I like keeping mine.
Well, that's the thing. Well, you say that, so it's also the same for mustaches, because you also tend to be very like that with mustaches, like particularly Mr. Banana Mustache from Quantum Break, as you nicknamed them.
I think it might be a case of facial hair in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can have them.
I will say this, for being a production in the 70s with basically almost no budget at all, the blood effects are actually pretty good, which once again makes me wonder what the fuck did the director of of Frozen 2010 did with the blood effects on that. Whatever.
I'm still wondering what's up with the side of his face.
I forgot what's the English name. Essentially, when you throw a punch at someone, Jay, where it doesn't actually create a laceration, but there's still a blood loss inside the skin. Yeah. I like that.
Fair enough. So he's been decked a few times.
Mm-hmm. Again, since this is basically hillbilly horror, they reinforce a couple of the stereotypes, like being super violent even against themselves.
Hold up, no. There are people like that in states where they'll come up around tourists, take a picture for them, and then immediately charge. So that's not surprising to see.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Just let him out and end the movie real quick.
So he's put a picture on an Easter egg wrapper.
And he's putting, if I recall correctly,
he's about to ignite it.
In the car?
Yes, Deb's in the car.
It's a firework. Well, shit.
Why didn't you
Alright, now it's time to get him the fuck out.
Should have done that earlier, you idiots.
Yeet.
Madman.
Alright, so we started the film off with a crazy guy and a bunch of morons and then kick him out.
Well, until
now one
then.
of their guys has a slash on his arm.
Should probably be full ready.
Okay. From what I understand, horror movies. Okay, I know horror movies have their fair share of characters who aren't the smartest tools in the shed. It's a common trope. But should that apply to literally all the main characters?
Depends on what kind of horror movie it is. Like a lot of times in slasher movies, they intentionally. It's one of those. A lot of slasher movies just make every character dumb, just so that when the killer saws their face off, it becomes all the more satisfying for you.
Not necessarily, not also just that, Dweebs, but sometimes some directors will intentionally apply this effect in order for you to not guess correctly who's going to survive among them, and when there's, a competitive one will make sure that when the rise to action actually arrives, as in the slasher starts killing people, the designated, survivors will actually rise to the action and become better as a result.
It's like, for example, when you're watching Chucky, for example, like you already know Andy's going to make it out because, well, he's the main character, obviously. but and he's of course the nice kid that you root for. Whereas in here, since they're all crap, there's no clear plot armor that you can see.
For a lot of people, it might be refreshing because you don't know what to expect. But by the same token, it's also very annoying because you're stuck with a bunch of dumbasses.
Mm-hmm.
Gulf.
It's like how I like to say, oh my god, all these characters are so moronically stupid. Like I said, Final Fantasy 14, all these characters are so moronic. They deserve to die a horrible death. That's literally what these movies are all about. Literally indulging in that fantasy of like, oh my god, I wish you would fucking die, and that's exactly what happens. So
I think that's another one.
And I must scream. Wow.
Wait, both of them? Oh boy.
Let me check if this gas station attendant is credited.
He's played by a gas station attendant.
Wow.
I mean, I'm pretty sure there have been films where they just literally get people who actually do the job in the real life to just play themselves.
Yeah, a lot of times. To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually is one. Like I said, the director actually casted a bunch of people, of locals actually. Almost all of these people are actually Texan, so you don't even have the excuse of you get state stereotyping from someone from New York or Los Angeles or something. No, these are genuine just people from the place.
Like I saw a football movie where a famous footballer plays a character who's, while technically not called by his real name, he's basically playing himself.
I don't know about you, Dweeb, so that is a good argument, but something is actually, I'm suddenly invested by a lot of thirst. If there was something that I could quelch with.
I guess Coke Zero wasn't invented yet at that point.
Absolutely not, Dweeb. Maybe you wouldn't. Okay, what year was Crystal Pepsi instead?
I said Coke Zero.
Well, you have to understand, Dweeb, zero sugar. Zero sugar beverages like Fanta, Coke, or Pepsi, for example, were invented way later. Around this time, again, you were just already lucky if you had something like Coke Light or something, or New Coke or
you asked for Crystal Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal Pepsi ran from 1992 to 1994. And there were an occasional few re-releases in the mid-2010s, and it actually did get sold around here in the UK and in Australia.
Okay, then. So it's still way too late compared to this. My point being, around this time, you basically got only the base stuff.
Oh, they got over the weirdo early. And pretty quickly.
Again, this is supposed to be,
Franklin seems to still be thinking about him.
This is supposed to be a tour, so they want to try to actually lighten up the mood.
Right, we've encountered the town. We encountered the town psycho. Now let's move on to the town funny guy, I guess.
Also, I find it particularly ironic that at this gas station where they clean their windshield and everything, they did not ask to clean the smear of blood.
I don't think he actually asked him to clean the windshield. I think they just started doing it to get a pay. Must have been something that happened back then.
Of course. Let me check the girls who are being played by. Sadly, he's played by Marilyn Burns. Let me see.
Yeah,
once again, this was actually close to her her first role. He didn't do that much after this. Well, instead, Pam is played by Terry McMean. Let's see. Yeah, she also did not do much in terms of acting career. What a lovely place.
Yeah, it's a good job they made this movie to tell a story and not be a glorified advert for Texas.
Visit Texas. Maybe even you can actually be slaughtered today.
Yes.
Yay!
Jerry instead is played by Alan Danziger. Let's see. Also did not do much.
Yeah, if they ever made an anime adaptation of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Crunchyroll has to be the one dubbing it since their studio's actually in Texas.
Well, actually, Crunchyroll doesn't actually dub the animes themselves. They hire studios to dub them.
Well, Crunchyroll have their own internal studio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Also, it's funny, but Japan tends to have its own set of, horrors. They don't really do a lot of adaptation from Western horror, unless it's something very unique, like that anime in which Lovecraftian horrors are anime schoolgirls. Yes, that's a thing.
It looks like he was eating poop.
Sausage lives.
Doesn't look very appetizing.
So yeah, logically for this trip, we just go investigate an abandoned house. Okay,
it's not necessarily abandoned. It's their family used to own it and then they left.
It's like, was Scooby-Doo basically onto something, and group of youngsters in the 60s and early 70s were basically regular in trying to visit the spooky places for fun?
Oh yeah, there wasn't a lot. There was not as much to do back then as there was now. I mean, so any interesting place that could spark off, any interesting place that could spark off adventure would be more than enough to.
Folders. At least this is not Australia. No shit.
Well, Australia would get, in terms of like low budget movies that helped to make a part of their country famous, Australia would get Mad Max about 5 years later.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, the end of the 70s were basically where Hollywood started waking up with stuff like Star Wars and these.
Okay, considering this was the 70s, I really hope the intent of this character was not to be the person who, well, he's in a wheelchair and he can't get through things, let's point and laugh at him.
No, if anything, it's actually, a bit of the opposite. Again, they play up a lot of the fact that he feels very frustrated, this condition. There's also the obvious fact of, the thing that you would expect for this stage, non-disabled, having to portray disabled. But again, considering the time this was made, we couldn't hope for, for a lot of authenticity's sake.
What does it matter with him?
I don't think he's, I wouldn't be too impressed being in here either.
I know he's having a bad time.
You okay?
He's angry. Interesting angle to have a paraplegic in a movie like this. That you would.
So this is a byproduct of these kinds of horror movies, and there's a lot of setup going into them.
You also
Half an hour into the movie, and
like Teo was saying,
no chainsaws.
Like Teo was saying, Jay, no, you'd be surprised. The horror genre, because of how the horror movies are usually not particularly meddled with by executives that much, they were able to do things before other genres were properly allowed to, like represent minorities and properly and shit like that.
Kind of reminds me of Resident Evil 7 with all.
Yes, actually, Jay, it's a good thing you noticed. This franchise will be very referenced in Resident Evil 7.
Yep.
Like I said, despite not being on the same level of Friday 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, it's still very popular, among horror fans. And that's how you spray your ankles.
Oh, be an adult. Wait. A house in the middle of nowhere.
I guess it's very common in Texas.
What, houses?
Well, more like very long distance houses, of anything. It's not the most optimal Christmas tree I've seen, but...
No, it's a bunch of metal pipings on a tree. It's used to scare birds away.
Ah. Like a scarecrow.
Yeah. The loud metal clanging is to frighten them and make them get out of there.
Andrew Garfield? I have actually met one or two people from Texas when I've been to conventions. They're very nice.
Yeah.
Again, there's a bit of a difference between stereotyping, and actual people from there.
I mean, no matter where you go, you're gonna find some people that are matched and a lot of people that don't. Some cool people and some genuine, for lack of a better term, assholes.
As a general thought, babes, don't take anything for granted. I mean, it is a generator, right? Knock. Knuckles. Oh,
that's a tooth.
I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like in Shadows of the Damned, where most of your ammos are actually teeth. Wow, he even left the door open.
Folks.
I'll consider it.
PSA for the future of you out there. Don't walk into houses that have their door unlocked.
Like that, yeah.
It's just a bad sign whatsoever.
And the film only cost $140,000, which is $876,000 about a couple of years ago.
Like I said, with very basically pocket change, even for the decade. We noticed that with stuff like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but back in the 70s, movies did not cost that much to make, even adjusting for inflation.
Quick cue: when you say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which one do you mean?
Okay, I might got wrong and say Willy Wonka. Whatever, the 70s movie.
Yeah, Willy Wonka.
Well, shit. Meet our slasher killer of the franchise, Leatherface.
Okay.
His entire shtick is basically butchering, so he will have equipment tied to that, like a hammer, a chainsaw, a hook.
But that ain't good.
No. Don't get too attached to Leatherface's appearance, because he changes actors with almost each and every movie. Also, I kind of like this shot, and I don't mean for the obvious reasons.
They had a few of those kinds of shots earlier too, nearby the Coca-Cola machine. But I do get you. It is it's slowly building.
I like the tracking more than anything. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Leatherface in this one is played by Gunnar Hansen, with German origin. Still American, though, but let me see
and
what else.
Apparently he came up, Mr. Hansen even came up with a backstory for the guy.
Interesting. This was also his first role. He had a career, but a lot of this stuff that I don't really recognize. And he passed away in 2015.
He portrayed him as someone who was, as this film I think called it earlier, handicapped, and never learned to talk properly, and he wanted to try and make the portrayal of it as non-offensive as he could.
So again, you can tell that the movie was trying back then to talk about these things, with what they had.
Hi, chicken. It's a chicken in a cage.
Imagine the smell of this place.
The wrong kind of bird cage.
Especially with the heat, combine that too, jeez.
And Hansen even had 3-inch lifts in his boots so he could look taller than everybody else.
That's the main gimmick of Leatherface. Might not be as wide, like an armchair, as Jason Voorhees is, but he sure is tall, still imposing in some kind of way.
I know you're freaked out, but do not scream. You gotta get your ass right back out of this house.
Welcome to the Bone Zone.
I want off Mr. Bones' wild ride.
Oh, turtle shell
the
too.
turtle shell.
I keep getting reminders of Cannibal Holocaust, and I wish I could forget.
This is a very good grim shot.
Without
everywhere you look, no matter where you go, it's all horrifying.
And hey, it even has subdued music instead of having constant jump scare strings. What a novel concept.
Well, I guess the music was co-composed by the director himself, so...
Well, it's not just that, Dweebs. I'm talking about the fact that...
before he became a Household name.
More modern horror, particularly from the mid 2000s, you know, love to over exaggerate, you know, the strings. Hi. So yeah, again, I guess my country's title, "Don't Open the Door," could be reference to this. Again, well, I suppose, but it's stretching.
I get the feeling.
Wait, no! Is this where they get the idea from?
From Dead by Daylight, yes.
Oh my god!
Well, now you know.
And knowing this slaughtering, yes, Pedro.
I guess I think I probably should have just done what I did, what my country did.
Agreed. I haven't checked if the later movies of the series actually, you know, keep these bizarre nomenclature.
I mean, they would. I mean, for marketing purposes, I'm guessing they would.
Hey, hang on a second. You can't activate the Mori this or... Oh, wait. He's doing it to the other body.
Yeah, I can tell you, Pedro, that the Chucky movie, when they started being called about Chucky, they started to actually, you know, translate the leader in the titles instead of being just, you know, the killer doll.
Mm. Well, obviously, I mean, if the normal titles change, obviously the...
What a lovely place. Again, visit Texas, kids. Okay. Props to the consistency, I suppose, because yes, the franchise has been called still like this to this very day, including last year's Netflix movie. The only one where they didn't not change title for obvious reason is the 2017's Leatherface movie.
Hey, Crewfro, can you shut the hell up over this? Stop bullying the poor guy.
Mm-hmm.
No, ma'am, I don't think you did.
I will say this at least also, despite, you know, being a 70s movie, which also were kind of infamous for feeling slow as molasses a lot of times, the pace actually works very well for what they want to do. Despite having, you know, a lot of continuous kind of shots, you know.
Hang on, we only have 5 people, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We've already lost 2 of them. And this man's about to go walk to his slaughter. Don't we have... Holy shit, we're already halfway?
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, yes, we are way through the movie, Jay, but like I said, at least for this one, I forgot most of the other sequels, because like I said, I'm not super fan of this franchise. They tend to, you know, not to blow their load all at once and take a bit of time.
I don't blame you for being mad, even though I had to get myself dragged along with your friends who have been doing nothing but bullying, neglecting, and making fun of me.
I'm glad I had a pie for my tea tonight and not anything meaty on a bone, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to skip out on that beef stew that I made yesterday.
I had a steak pie, in case you wondered.
Like you said,
no, I got an iron stomach.
Like I said, sometimes for joking, other times some people legitimately got convinced by this set of movies to never eat meat again.
I
haven't mentioned Kirk's actor, William Vale.
What else has he popped up in?
Let me check. I'm trying to guess the track record he might not have done much, but see, no, okay, no, okay, he did some stuff, mostly TV. Let me see. Oh no, because Hold on. Okay, as an actor, he did not do much. He was in Poltergeist, apparently. Pretty cool. But he was mostly a set designer. And he has been doing stuff until 2012.
Well, Toby Hooper's other more famous film is called Poltergeist.
Yeah, that's the one, Dweebs.
Yeah, and that was directed by Hooper and co-written by Steven Spielberg.
You start with anything, Dweebs. If I recall correctly, it is one of his early works.
Yep. Remember, the movie that catapulted Spielberg's career was Jaws, which is
came out before this. Jaws came out before Poltergeist.
I guess it was a side thing that he did then.
Alright then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Poltergeist was 1982. See, all my harking on the 70s, let me just sum it up with a proper sentence. 1981 and 1982, potentially alone, contain more important movies for the history of cinema than the 70s in their totality.
That's why a lot of people praise the first Star Wars movie too, because it was the movie that broke off that apathy in Hollywood.
Like you said, I get it, Pedro. Like you said, at the time it was, I've always been taught that it was basically the Trinity that came out around the same time. The first Exorcist, the first Jaw, and the first Star Wars. You can remember, before that...
Don't open that door, man.
Yeah, hey, that's the title in my country. Cinema was viewed as more of a kind of a niche thing, not really for the masses, and sometimes, not something that you would go to see a lot.
Wow, Leatherface certainly cleans up quickly.
I guess he also has nothing better to do. Don't open that fridge. I guess that's a new title. I was frozen today. Oh shit.
Oh!
Were you frozen in 2010?
Yeah, I think Leatherface is like, are there any more people I should be knowing about?
I wonder if back when this film first released.
I think it's the.
I wonder if you have people come up with their own personal morals of the story. I wonder how many people's moral they came out of this was don't go to Texas.
I'm sorry. Is this guy feeling remorse over the kills? He just sat down and put his heads in his hands.
Potentially.
No, he's definitely not feeling remorse.
One of the big things about, compared to, again, people like Jason Voorhees or, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface has a more of a human quality, but you never know what he's truly thinking. Like, is he actually conscious of his actions? Is he,
he's also the fastest killer of the pots.
As the movie progresses, also we will be throwing a couple more curveballs to put into question, his villainy. But again, it's a bit full for thought. Again, the franchise had its own merits, for what it's worth. Also, Dweebs, it's funny you mentioned about interpretation of the story, because if I remember correctly, back when this came out, it wasn't really viewed that much. I don't think it was outright hated, like, say, John Carpenter's The Thing. But it wasn't particularly, praised, outside of the fact that it got all the money at the box office.
Good news, Sally. You certainly might be.
Yeah, unfortunately, being still one of the early examples of slashers, especially done in America, you know, it does contain the kind of cliches that you expect, like, let's split up.
Well, guy's the most sensible about it all.
Ow.
You're yelling at each other. Are you sure these guys aren't the insane guys?
Maybe it means that's the themes of who's the real monster.
The people
Actually,
who have been roiling people up. You guys are assholes, but the whatever family is clearly the monsters.
I wonder if one of these future movies has a twist. Is like, oh, Leatherface actually was born with a leather face.
Okay, not that, thankfully. I think one of the I forgot because again it's been a while, but I think one of the later movies tries to basically play it around and say that these characters' name, Leatherface, the human version of Leatherface, his name, being a child is actually a good person, and it's his father who is the Leatherface of the movie.
Leatherface? Nah, that's my daddy's name. Call me Leatherface Jr.
And I'm Mrs. Leatherface.
I mean, it's one of the big Southern traditions, sticking to family, whatever they make sense or not.
I have a wedding ring. I have a wedding mask.
Hold up. Does that mean Leatherface is the surname? Then what's your first name?
Well, more like the nickname of the character.
No. My first name's Leather, and that's my honey face. Leatherface, and face Leatherface. What do you call your kids? Texas? It is a little odd that we name some children by cities. Some of them we name states.
My name's Bob, Michigan.
I think there's a town in Missouri. And there goes Franklin. I think there is a town in Michigan called Hell. So yeah,
okay,
that
now
means...
this third act is when the
we're down to one.
This third act is apparently when the production of the movie went to hell.
Sadly, he's basically our final, survivor. A bit of a premiere of a final girl trope.
Like, there was a bit where the chase going on now.
What's he doing?
Marilyn... Yeah, I'll explain that in a bit. Marilyn Burns, who played the character running away, she couldn't convincingly keep ahead of Gunnar Hansen, and Hansen had to run a lot slower than he actually could, and he even had to resort to cutting up tree branches for no reason, just so that Burns could widen the gap between them.
I can understand having to cut up the tree branches to pad time, but did you see the way that he did it originally? Rather than actually horizontally swinging the chainsaw to make the cuts, he just shoved them sideways first.
It nearly actually turned fatal at one point. Apparently Hansen slipped on the wet grass, lost his grip on the chainsaw that was still running, and it flew up in the air and came down point first. That was just inches from his head.
Yeesh.
This film nearly actually killed somebody.
Again,
which
being
kind
done
of
in that...
indicates to me that the chainsaw. I know. Immersion, quote unquote. But did you really need the chainsaw to be running in literally every shot? We have ADR for a reason, Mr. Director.
Some people believe that specific sounds will cause adrenaline boosts, and the sound of a chainsaw running one heavy thread is very good for the example. So it's likely because of that.
I agree,
back
Jay,
in the
but I
70s.
also partially agree with Dweebs and say that, if it causes those kind of problems, you probably should just use a prop and fix in post.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I know people want... Actually, I don't even think Stanley Kubrick would go so far as nearly having somebody kill one of his actors.
No.
God, it's been a long time since I watched Evil Dead. I don't remember if the chainsaw that Ash uses is authentic or not.
You know what I mean, Pedro?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that! Leatherface must be Wolverine. He's actually slashing an... Oh.
I mean, the only major thing with actors regarding Kubrick was, of course, the whole thing with Shelley Duvall, and they both of them got over that because Shelley Duvall showed up in a 2001 documentary to give an interview about him and everything, and even spoke well of him. So so even that got resolved.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, at worst,
panicking.
At worst, while filming The Shining, Kubrick was just a bit of a knob, whereas here, the director's recklessness nearly got someone killed.
Oh.
Or sadly.
But when we get to future seasons of the movie, it got worse.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, when it comes to long-running slasher series, it almost always peaks in the first movie. That's basically how these. Chucky being one of the few exceptions, I will argue.
I argue.
For as little as I liked the series, I think Saw's another exception.
I haven't seen all of those movies yet, so I can't really.
I'm talking about the first one.
Sure.
We're basing out to movie 4, Saw the J, just to let you know at this point.
Okay.
In the commentary for the movie, Miss Burns said when she was being chased in the dark, she was really scared shitless because neither she nor Gunnar could hear the director over the chainsaw, and therefore, when the director yelled "cut," Gunnar couldn't hear. Which leads me to believe, okay, Mr. Hooper, that maybe that's why you shouldn't have an actual chainsaw in scenes like this.
Yeah.
Of course no one's gonna hear you.
No, I'm completely with you. It's better for the... It's better just to use a prop.
I guess it gives a layer of... Gone.
And even better, that scene earlier where Sally fell out of the window, that was real. And Marilyn actually sustained a leg injury, so she's limping for the rest of the movie because of that.
She was Tom Cruising before it was cool. Hey, we're back at the gas station.
Is this why the film's not that popular? Because the director was really, really reckless?
No.
And it cast a shadow over everything else.
Also, just to mention, I argue Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 is actually far superior than the first movie. As a general rule of thought, Wes Craven actually was very good at making movies. I don't think New Nightmare is actually better than these predecessors, the movies he did beforehand, so it's not at the top of the franchise, but it's still also good on its own.
This is nice, at least.
Well, shit.
Don't go.
I'm sure nothing bad will happen.
Oh, honey, you look a mess. It's like you've been running through a cornfield all night.
Mmm, sausages.
Huh. Something about that looks a little familiar.
Surely you're jesting.
Plot twist, the guy running the store is actually Leatherface's dad.
Rope.
I smile like a maniac.
There's a frying pan right there.
I think the knife works better. The fact that you had to specify that, yeah. Fucking hell.
A broom. Woman, quit screaming. You're being hit by a broom. You should probably think closer. Okay, now you're being hit by a broomstick. That's way more hurtful.
Let me check something quickly.
Feels like someone. Feels like someone who's constantly looking over his shoulder wouldn't forget.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, that's actually kind of funny.
Doop-de-doop-de-doo.
You're probably making it worse by poking her with a stick.
Pretty sure he's not in a state of, yeah. Jeez.
I know it's a horror, but it'd be hysterical if he just hit the side of a tree.
I think there is one of the Nightmare on Elm Street comics that kind of has something like going on like that, where someone kidnaps a girl, but because they're too busy arguing, he doesn't watch the road and he gets onto the side of on top of a tree. Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that!
Look who it is.
The hitchhiker from before.
Oh, lovely.
Lovely.
I mean, the dribble that came out of his mouth just a minute ago was extremely racist, so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of easy to see where this one's standing.
Let me check again if I found the actor of this one.
No, your other son is way more reliable. Look what your brother did to the door.
Is this that dinner scene coming up?
Yeah. We're about to get it again. The thing that Resident Evil 7, homaged.
And we get yet another example of troubled production. But I'll get to when we get to the scene proper.
Mm-hmm.
It needed something to hit him for.
What a charming family.
Mm-hmm. Again, visiting Texas today. Oh, sure. There you go, I found him. Jim Seidel. Surprisingly enough, he didn't do much through this.
what lovely decorations they have.
They were themed after Halloween, I guess.
Oh, that is the first official name we've gotten for Leatherface.
Yes, similar to Jason Voorhees, the first movie really has the kill the slasher who became more popular in a more, side kind of role, still active, but maybe not as much as you would think. It's only the later movies that focus a bit more on them. In this case, it's more the entire, Hewitt family.
Oh, the Hewitts.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. I thought there was a wife.
I forgot if she shows up in one of the sequels or potentially in the 2003 remake. There is a bit of a continuity snarl in a sense, but there are three distinct timelines of this franchise, a bit similar to Halloween, Jay. The remake has its own, then there's one that involves this movie and a couple ones done, I think, in the mid-2010s. And then there's the original one, which involves the direct sequels done after this. I think Grandpa has seen better days. How?
Okay, apparently what happened here is there was supposed to be a device that spurted out fake blood, but it didn't work. So Marilyn Burns actually got her finger cut open and they actually sucked out her blood.
Jeez.
Which,
let's hope that the blade was sterilized.
Is this... I don't know if this is Hooper's first film or anything.
Second. He did one before this, I think it was called like Cheesecake. Let me see.
Wow, I can't remember the last time
Eggshells, there you go.
I can't remember the last time I've seen a movie where the more I watch it and the more I hear about the behind the scenes, the more pissed I am at the director. Because he's doing all these really reckless things, and he's nearly got one of his actors killed because of his own stupid decision making.
Maybe The Room, Dweebs?
No. Tommy Wiseau was just a dick. This guy flat out endangered people who he's supposed to be in charge of.
Trust me, Dweebs. Okay, I don't think it's... Jesus. There you go, we're at the Seabird the dinner. Trust me, Dweebs, Cannibal Holocaust is much, much worse.
Dweebs, what about the guys who made Roar? I think that's the name.
Yeah. True, there's that too. Roar, the movie Jova showed us.
I mean, because that was literally a bunch of people, not just one person.
And not just that, his entire family, so more direct relatives.
Yeah. So, that one, Liz?
Yeah, that one too.
Still lack of professionalism, obviously, just in here it's not as direct.
Alright, so basically what happened here is because, I don't know if you guys know, but Texas is really, really hot.
Yeah.
Specifically 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, and also because of the filming lights, all the food on the table actually rotted really quickly, and because of the poor ventilation of the room, the stink was even worse, which meant it was actually pretty threatening to people's health.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the filming they were doing actually led to several of the actors start to suffer and start to actually genuinely lose their sanity. And they took the direction from Mr. Hooper as meaning that they were actually their characters. And considering these people are playing cannibalistic murderers...
Yeah.
Yeah, not to mention Mr. Hansen recounted while filming this scene, there's a scene where his character is ordered to kill Marilyn's character by his quote brother, and he recounted he actually genuinely wanted to do it. And the hitchhiker, who's played by Edwin Neal, as we said earlier, he'd literally come home from the Vietnam War not long ago, and he described filming the scene as worse than anything the Viet Cong put him through.
And to put in perspective, the Vietnam War is legendary for, coining a new wave of PTSD of returning soldiers. So yeah, that has to count for something.
Needless to say, the crew were pretty mad at Hooper, and it took years for any of the hatred towards him to cool off.
I can understand that. If there's any consolation, the franchise is at a point where, I don't think his estate is really receiving that much of an introit.
I mean, he still made movies up until the day
including
he died
others
in,
of his franchise,
2017.
Including others of his franchise. So yeah, it's not the last way we see of him.
Also, damn, if you're not a fan of movies that have a lot of noise, you're probably not gonna like this movie either. And yeah, I know. It's like I said before. I know
the noise is one thing, but I think we've been sitting here for 5 or so minutes just listening to them scream and mock her.
And yeah, I know, and I understand that, and I've said this myself. I do try not to let a movie's behind-the-scenes troubles impact my opinion of a movie, and I still don't. But it's really difficult in this case, I must say.
I will instead use these minutes as well to actually talk about something that was discussed around the time. One of the things that this movie also discussed, as in the exploitation that was done. It was still done, I think, around the 80s with some other slasher, but thankfully, it got diluted over the years. Particularly, violence against women in these slashers. I don't think it's completely to be blamed on the director, at least as far as I know. As Weaves eventually is already guilty of plenty of things, but I don't know if it was actually intentional or not. But this movie is actually used as a study example of how the mentality back then was more lenient towards, having, women being preferred as victims, for this kind of slasher. Again, the entire point of the final girl is also for that. To put one example, remember how the others were quick. The men were relatively quick succession, like a bump to the head or anything. But the first girl was even strapped onto the hook meat, and yeah, poor Sally here is passing through her own personal hell, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we're not here at the point of the first Alien, where the final girl gets to manage to have enough balls to fight back properly against her assaults. It is worth noting that, again, this movie being used in, for example, test screens to wager, for example, reaction from mixed crowd, had, people, reacting mostly out of disgust, out of a thing. So at the very least, there is that. It's rather than, it's more just showcasing what the mentality was back then. Oh, Grandpa, you fucked up.
Is this... Okay, I know Saw is accused of torture porn, but are you sure... I'm pretty sure this is the film that helped... Maybe this is the film that helped to begin that craze, because this has just degenerated into just gruesome torture for the sake of it.
I get the idea you haven't seen much hillbilly horror movies, Lives, haven't you?
No, and...
The entire subgenre is basically like this, so I can already tell you probably are not a fan of it.
Yeah.
And I don't blame you for that.
Between this and Black Christmas, the 70s one to be exact. So far, okay, this is 2 so-called horror classics I'm seeing that
you moron.
That I'm just not really seeing the appeal of it. The film had me at first, but then it just started degenerating into whatever this is.
For a record, the things I didn't mention, the grandpa, or whatever flimsy remains of him are, is played by John Duggan, who did came back for the franchise a few times. And the last movie that he did, is not that, but the last movie that he did was in 2017 called Rock, Paper, Scissors.
Damn,
Was one of, and yeah, that's one of the more iconic, also other appearances of Leatherface. Instead of just the butcher's, butcher's gown, instead he has an entire suit. It's like I'm being chased by a Yakuza sub-boss. Basically, I forgot the name, I think it's called Doctor something. The mini-boss from Resident Evil 4, also, the guy with the burlap sack and chainsaw mask, is supposed to be a reference to this. There you go, thankfully we have a trucker to the unintentional rescue. Oops!
Woo!
Optimus Prime?
Yes.
No.
He got the touch. Well, shit.
Leatherface turned the corner and immediately he went, nah.
But yeah, at very least, good on the trucker to actually understand quickly the situation and being helpful. So there is that. Also, that chainsaw kind of sucks if you cannot penetrate that.
I got him.
Watch this. Bonk.
Does the mask have... Oh, it has makeup on.
Yes. Again, the Leatherface essentially has to play surrogate for missing family members.
Nah, that person's like,
Nope.
No, wait. No damn way. Oh. Never mind. He is stopping.
Maybe he's gonna try and run the
The trucker will just basically get away. I don't think we really see him again, but he's not registered as a victim, so he survives this. And yes, that's basically our ending. By a stroke of luck, Sally manages to get away.
A stroke is putting it lightly.
And essentially,
the incompetency of the grave robber is, like, insane.
And essentially, we kind of end like this, with her laughing maniacally at surviving this adrenaline, which one in Leatherface just doing the Joker dance, I guess.
Also, also another fun
and yeah,
fact,
it just stops like this.
Also, apparently, that bit where he's just shaking the chainsaw around, it was the script originally said he was just going to stamp his foot in frustration, but he actually did that to scare Toby Hooper as payback for the troubled production.
Cool, cute.
Yeah,
but
you go first.
But yeah, that's it. That's the movie. No post-credit scene for obvious reasons. So...
John Larroquette did the narration.
Yeah, like I mentioned, Libs. And he will be basically the iconic narrator for the rest of the franchise, no matter the continuity.
What an experience.
Libs, final thoughts.
Okay, I know he's been dead since 2017, but how the hell Toby Hooper managed to have a career after this, after essentially putting his actors through sheer hell and nearly getting one of them killed?
Unfortunately, Libs, the 70s was a decade, among other things, where not many people cared about these things.
Like, if that happened nowadays, the director would be lucky to just be blacklisted, never mind end up in prison for neglect or worse.
Okay, not necessarily depends on this, because it's more multiple kind of things. If you don't know, Libs, something recently, an accident actually happened that involved Alec Baldwin.
That whole thing with Ross, I know. So
it's not as crystal clear, but on the account on this guy is not just like one thing that he did. The production was not exactly great, as you noted.
Yeah, I know. As you can probably tell, I'm not really a huge... This is the first film of his I've seen, and already I'm not a huge fan of the guy. But talking about the movie itself, it was actually going all right for the first 2/3 of it. You know, it was building up. Yes, I mean the characters aren't anything special or anything, but you know we got to know them a lot, and yeah, we were building up as well as building up one of the villains of the movie. You know, him being an insane, insane people who the character just let on because apparently kindness is idiocy. Plus, plus the first few moments with Leatherface and how he performs his kills, I thought were actually pretty effective. But then in the third act, it just degenerates into it's like I said, torture porn just for the sake of it, and all that. Again, I know it's meant to be a tense situation, but I think, it's like with anything, if you overdo the screaming, it just becomes annoying to the point where you just want them to shut up.
It also unfortunately deprives the character, of our basically our last survivor heroine, of a lot of a personality, because if she just reduced to just screaming and everything, not that much.
Yeah, she's just a person that screams a lot,
mm-hmm.
and it's like I said before, the hell the people went through to make this because of the director's recklessness. It hasn't really helped my opinion of the movie. Is this how people felt towards one of the directors of that Twilight Zone movie? Where incident there happened?
I think so, actually. We saw also another example that I forgot until now, is that what we saw recently of Resident Evil, the final chapter, where it injured severely one of the stuntmen and outright killed another.
Yeah. Yeah, well, when a director has that going against them, it's one thing if that kind of thing happens once or twice over a very, very long period of time. So you can chalk that down to, okay, it was a freak accident. Maybe they could have, maybe in hindsight this is what they should have done. But I guess because they thought everything was safe, but something just happened. That'd be one thing, but to happen several times throughout the same movie, that kind of comes to me as you really don't know what the hell you're doing. And it actually kind of impacted the movie as a result, which is really unfortunate. This film was considered a horror classic, and yet, I don't know. I just didn't feel this one.
This is also one of the things that Jova mentioned recently about potentially the importance of producer and executive producers, because it gives a sort of a cushion net that potentially prevents stuff like this to happen.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm done.
Jay.
At this point in time, I have seen The Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, Child's Play, Friday the 13th. And now I can add the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to the collection list of horror movie classics. Pardon me. And I gotta say, yeah, I'm with Dubs on this one. This one's just kind of the weakest of the pot. There are some really, really good camera shots and some set pieces, and a lot of tension does get built up, but for a story, it's meandering. You get a group of people who relatively don't like each other traveling on the road together. You get a hitchhiker who is just a madman. The father family who sells them a set of barbecue. And then you get Leatherface. And it's funny that the one who cannot speak winds up being the most competent of the pot. He's a killer who does not waste time trying to torture or have fun with the thing. He gets the job done in an instant, and that is a good thing. A lot of the kills don't spend too much time being gore porn, and it's kind of refreshing in that manner. But then the rest of the movie takes place, and it's just not. At the last leg of the movie, you sit there for about 5 or so minutes just listening to them screaming and hollering and being idiots, all 5 of them. And then we move into having the extremely old man try and take out the killer until the hitchhiker gets impatient and tries to do it himself, which winds up letting her go, getting him mowed down, getting his brother. I don't know what happened with him and his leg. I think the chainsaw fell on top of him.
First, the truck driver threw a wrench literally into his head, bumping. He fell into the ground, and the chainsaw slightly injured his leg, which is also probably the reason why he could not run that much behind the truck and allowed, our final girl to escape.
The good is that a lot of the killers aren't super powered by their own murderous intentions and are relatively human. But the bad is, a lot of it gets to be real meandering with the last survivor, and it kind of takes away all that it's built up by just fooling around at the near end of it. Considering what happened with the movie collection, I wouldn't be surprised if even the actors were just phoning it in by that point, but for what's supposed to be a horror movie classic, it stands below a lot of the others. Kind of disappointing, really. I was looking forward to this one.
Pedro.
Yeah, this one hasn't really aged all that well, unfortunately. But I'm going to take aside the whole thing with the director because we've already covered that. While it starts off fine, yeah, it eventually devolved into just a lot of stuff that doesn't really do much. Like the climax, the third act in particular is just not strong at all, and eventually it just falls into just really fucked up stuff for the sake of it. And it's just not as fun as some of the other slashers, not really. So yeah, despite its reputation, I have to say that this one in particular doesn't quite hold up like the others do. Who knows, maybe the sequels end up being better, who knows. But yeah, like compared to the other slashers, like Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff, this one definitely didn't age as well. So who knows? Maybe the second one will be better too.
All right, I'll conclude. Yeah, I state what I said at the beginning that the franchise as a whole did not capture me as much as stuff like Hellraiser, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. And put in context, though some of those have some similar cliches in terms of in-story cliches of stuff that happens here. Like I said, for a long while, the slashers did have the formula of the final girl, It was really Alien. Stuff like Alien, and arguably also the first Nightmare on Elm Street, that revolutionized things a bit, But unfortunately, this one as a result suffers being left behind into its own problem story, and that's not even counting the behind the scenes of it, Waves also, as mentioned. It's an unfortunate case. I would say that, the bright side of the thing is that this makes it good material for a remake, one that can be cleaned out of a whole behind-the-scenes mess and can tell the same kind of story, just in a better way, with the characters having a bit more agency, a bit more of a personality, stuff like that. Which a remake did happen in 2003, but like I said, it's been a long while since I watched most of the movies, so I don't remember exactly how is that one compared to this. No, really. Again, it really showcases how much the movie industry has evolved over the years, and I get why this is still below the franchise as a whole, but to me it's just there. And again, that's not counting the behind-the-scenes stuff, which unfortunately, drag it down considerably. And unfortunately for Dweebs, the director came back to do the second movie. So at the very least for that one, we're back with him. I don't know how the production of that one went, to be honest. It took basically a decade because until I think the early 80s, this one was essentially, like I said, despite the box office success, did not really had that much of an appeal for making a sequel directly. But then I think in the 80s, New Line Cinema acquired the rights and then pushed the directors to make a sequel out of that, which happened in 1986. So eventually, I guess we will see you for that, which is aptly named the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. See you for that.
See ya.
Bye, folks.
See ya.